Now this is going to be a fairly brief video. The problem with me doing up a practice, if you like, a mock-up of a critical summary of evidence, is I'm not actually basing it on any other evidence I've created. So while I can highlight some points for you, it's worth you having a look at the QCAA annotated example, seeing what's done there, have a look at some of the other examples we've created for other subjects and explore from here. But at least to some extent, I should be able to show you a little bit of what we're interested in when it comes to the summary of evidence. When we look at the criterion in the ISMG here, we can see that it's really evaluating and devising conducting that play the main part. That's our main focus in this section. Now, that's not to say that other criteria might not come up. Your communicating, for example, will always matter. How succinctly you write, your proofreading. But absolutely we need to focus on devising and conducting. And you can see I've got some brown color coding going on, so you can see where I'm addressing some of those in a fairly hypothetical way. And evaluating. Okay, they're our two main emphases here. And I draw your attention to the explanations about what is to go on here. Now down the bottom you can see that analysing might come up. I suspect the vast majority of the analysing phase is going to be in the interrogation section. But it is possible that in some elements of this section, a little bit of discussion of the features of the sources, about how the sources contribute to the development of a key inquiry question, might come in. But here's the main things we should be looking to do. As you're looking at my example here, the aim for you is to make judgments on how useful this source is and how reliable this source is. And these are referred to in other videos. Think about very much why it's reliable, how we know it's reliable. Is there some sort of corroboration to indicate that it definitely is reliable? Is that source almost triangulated? Are there a couple of other points of reference, like 3 points of a triangle, that support that point that is coming through a particular source? Think also about who a source might be useful for, why it might be useful, what purpose does this source serve? So when we're talking about usefulness, is that usefulness tied to a time or a place? Is it tied to a particular user, a particular reason for why it is useful? See if that can be worked into it. What's its purpose? In this case, for example, I've got Bottom's history is of special importance because it sheds light, it's useful in trying to make sense of the systematic violence that move along the pathway of parasource expansion. And that's corroborating with another source. Okay, so let's then push down a bit. That brown piece I just picked up on there shows one of the difficulties. I'm talking about why it is useful, but I'm also, in that same moment, linking it to this section here, linking it to a key inquiry question, linking it to one of my sub-questions. So when we're writing it, it's not like a sentence will absolutely serve only one purpose. It may serve multiple purposes, and we're trying to address all of these criteria, all of these approaches, within one paragraph of about 300 to 500 words. And that's where the challenge is. And that's why then we start to talk about the communication skills, which require certain nuance, writing succinctly, using our terminology. So have a look at these ideas here. Realize that my color coding is rather imprecise. Realize that I am talking in the abstract about sources because I don't actually have a mocked up interrogation of the entire assignment here. I'm demonstrating what a summary of evidence might say and might look like in response to some made up key inquiry question, sub-questions. In other words, it's a mock-up task, and you'll need to feel your way forward and know that everyone's response to the summary of evidence might be slightly different. So hopefully that's given you something to think about. And when you pause, think about some of the key terms, think about some of the instructions and the criteria, think about some of the tips here. It might give you a way forward.